What's up, party people? It's KeysDAN with RadioWhat.com, DJLittleRock.com, coming to you live in a living color from the Radio What studios. And this is my podcast, What Makes You Famous? It's an extension of the RadioWhat.com internet radio station that I've been running for quite some time. And if you need DJ services, where do I always send you? DJLittleRock.com. One more time, DJLittleRock.com. Check availability and get a free price quote. And maybe you could have me at your next event. You know I like to party with the people. The people need to be entertained. Are you not entertained? Let me entertain you. Speaking of entertainment, today on the program, I have Stephen Dijoseph. Now, he's out of Philadelphia, PA, and quite a few other places as well. He's been out to Cali and such. But Stephen Dijoseph, filmmaker, musician, and so much more. You're going to get to know a little bit more about him in the next few minutes, so stick around. So excited to talk to him. This week's shows, oh my goodness, I have no public shows this week. Usually I'm at the Rab on Friday night, but on Friday night, I'm going to be at a middle school dance. I'm playing for the middle schoolers. I'm not going to tell you which one, so you don't show up, you weirdos. But yeah, I'm playing music for a middle school dance. I've been doing this 5 years in a row. Same middle school. So excited, so stoked. Now, the Rab will still have karaoke on Friday night, so I encourage you to check out the Rab, Conway, Arkansas, with the full bar, the kitchen, the pool tables. They got a pool tournament on Friday nights, so I encourage you to still go check out the Rab. I'll be back there next Friday night for sure, but I'm looking forward to playing for the kids, having some fun at the middle school. All right, party people. And then on Saturday, I'm going to go see the Rocky Horror Picture Show in Little Rock. It's at 9 p.m. That's kind of weird. Usually it's a midnight movie, but this year, I guess it's 9 p.m. I guess they want to go home early. Us old farts that have been watching Rocky since the 70s are getting a little bit older. So we want to get home early. Maybe that's it. Maybe that's their reasoning, that it's not a midnight show. But, there's a whole new group of people watching Rocky. Rocky Horror Picture Show. Worst movie I've ever seen over 200 times. I mean, for real, over 200 times. College was great. All right, that's enough intro. Let's get into it with Stephen Dijoseph. I got him on Skype, so if you're listening to the audio version of this, I encourage you to check out the video version on my YouTube page, youtube.com/user/KeysDAN. Skyping Stephen Dijoseph now.
We're gearing up.
Yes. Stephen Dijoseph?
Yes, sir.
I pronounced it correctly. I put the right emphasis on the right syllable. Oh, my goodness. Stephen Dijoseph. I have been trying to figure you out, pin you down all day. Oh. Actually, since the interview was scheduled. Originally, I've been trying to figure out what box can I put you in. I don't think I can put you in a box. You have several boxes that you walk in and out of from time to time. Give the people an idea of who you are.
I got kind of a mansion going on, I guess, if you will. Bear with me one sec. Are we on yet?
Oh, sure. We start whenever.
Let me just make the background a little. Have the Wizard of Oz in there, I've got a number of hats I wear, of course, as an independent artist. So, but musically, I have what I call multiple genre disorder, or MGD. So my solution to that problem was to make an album in each category, or each genre, if you will. And that seems to have worked in some sort of way. And I can at least say, I do this, and I can play that for you. And if you want to book me that way, we can do that. So,
well, there's no limits on Stephen Dijoseph. I like that. You mostly live in the prog rock. You have a lot of classical elements to you, to where you can take the music that's been around for centuries and turn it into something brand new, which is a smart thing to do. I know one of your favorites, and I guess one of the latest, probably going a year now, is the Yes Roundabout. If you can describe your type of music, your type of style. Yes is a fantastic band between Yes and Pink Floyd and these bands that just jam and just bring elements from all over, from every type of music, and just mash it all into one. But there is chord progression, there's style. Did you learn how to do this? Do you know how to read music? Did you go to school for this? I mean, tell the people who you are.
Well, I started out when I was born, and from there progressed forward. So about 6 years old, I developed two things. One was an insatiable desire for music. I saw the Beatles perform on the Ed Sullivan Show. I'm dating myself, but you can find the Ed Sullivan Show on YouTube, and you can find the very date that the Beatles played in the America. And so I saw that. I jumped off the chair at my grandmom's house, and I was like, I want to do that. I want to be that. The second thing that happened was that I developed these urges and blurting noises and tics and stuff. So it was almost like a simultaneous thing that the music and what I have is Tourette syndrome. So this kind of, they fueled each other. I mean, I don't know who's who, but what's what there. But for 10 years, I didn't know what it was that I had. And when I finally heard at the age of 16, the word Tourette syndrome as a diagnosis, I said, oh, okay, now what does that mean? So for me, it was this 10 years was a very formative time, of course, 6 to 16. And I developed my musical passions. I was on the road for progressive rock, for jazz, for classical, for songwriter, pop, everything, you couldn't sit me down. So I began to study classical music because my prog heroes emulated that classical infusion and style. And I was told by a local artist that I admired, study classical. So once I got into that, it just opened up a whole other can of worms, if you will, Beethoven, Bach, and all these guys, and Debussy, and all that music began to influence my writing. And I began to imitate, emulate those styles. My close friends who were all musicians, we all started a band and started writing in this progressive style, So that's how everything really began for me. That's my roots, if you will.
Well, you've opened up a lot of avenues to explore. How old were you in '64 when the Beatles were on Ed Sullivan?
I was around 6.
6 years old. Oh, hold on a second. I lost you for a second. Let me get that working again. Go.
I like that film thing that just went by. So I'm 66 now, and so 60 years it's been my life of music and creating, and there it is.
Wow, that is amazing, because you definitely don't look it. You look very fit, very in shape. You're not the typical 66-year-old. You keep yourself going, probably with this business we call show for all these years, working on stage. Yeah, if I do a show that I'm on stage for quite a few hours, I'm going to lose a few lbs in water weight. But you have to stay in some kind of shape to keep going for all these years. The Stones. I love the Stones. I can't believe they're still doing it after all these years. Fred and Barney. They.
All right, it's true. Yeah,
but no, they've been. I mean, to have a longevity, you have to stay in shape. You have to work out. I mean, do you have an exercise regimen?
My exercise regimen, interestingly enough, this is my personal philosophy about having Tourette's, is that you're always it's almost like built-in isometrics, because you're always like, you have this certain squeezing and releasing, if you will, attack and release of tics. So that's pretty much my day. I mean, I walk. I love walking. I'm very active. I'm hyperactive. So I think all those things kind of play in. Some genetics there. Certain uncles were very thin, and I think I took after them. So yeah, I mean, I think so. All of that connects. So get yourself a serving of Tourette's, and you can maybe give up working out. I don't know. Just a thought.
Stephen, since Tourette's is a big part of your life, it has been a major issue for you since I guess you've had it all your whole life. Then was there any
since age 6 it started? Yeah.
Was there any trauma that affected it, that started it, or no?
No, they say, according to medical studies, is that it's usually passed through the genes of the female, the mother. Thanks, Mom. But it's a like I said, it's a double-edged sword. There's the challenges of the tics, but there's also this heightened creativity. But I did so I'm just actually working on the 10-year anniversary of my winning this film festival in my region, and then the film traveling, East Coast, West Coast, and beginning to do talks about it. And one of the things that I said in it is that the neurodiverse conditions that exist, whatever they are, OCD, ADD, all across the board, autism, obviously, there's some kind of component of heightened creative drive, no matter what field you're in. And like obviously music is an obvious thing, or theater, or what, but even outside of that, in mathematics and language, it's all across the gamut. So when I made this film, I looked into that, and I was like, wow, there's actually an OCD society in Hollywood. No big surprise. So that more or less was what my film is about. That it's not only in my life, and this was the 10 years that I didn't know what it was called, but that how widespread this is. It's not under a rock anymore.
Well, Stephen, I think this is your coping mechanism. A lot of people, are born with things, challenges, and they go through how to cope with these challenges. I think it was famously Mel Tillis had a stutter, so he used singing. Whenever he sings, his stutter is invisible. It's gone. My best buddy in the whole wide world, John Canada, he got dropped on his head as a baby and ended up with epilepsy. Now, more recently, he got a brain surgery and got that fixed up, and now he's able to drive and do all the things that he couldn't do beforehand. But, and I chose, you mentioned the background. I chose the background because I know that in addition to being a musician, you're also a movie maker. You're mixing those things together. I know Robert Rodriguez, he cuts and he chops and he edits all his own films, and he's become, a powerhouse in Hollywood. Where do we find you? Let's go back a little bit. Where are you located right now?
You can't start in Hollywood. However, I am on IMDb with this film. So I got into making my own videos because I didn't have the budget to make a music video back in 2004. And the Macintosh was like, oh wow, iMovie, and you can produce this and that. So I got into that, and I got a camera, and I just made this video, and it got a nomination into this what's called Just Plain Folks International Music Awards. It got into that category, and they liked it a lot. And so I thought, well, I have a little knack for this. So I just kept making music videos and other videos, funny videos, until I got to this around 2009 or so. I decided I wanted to make the story of the Tourette thing and the music and the whole creative input, all the drives. And so I got, I started to work with a higher up video editing program, Final Cut.
Okay.
But I worked with that, and I got into it, and I think primarily I will say thank you, Apple, because if that movie program didn't exist, I wouldn't have thought, how am I going to get into it? How am I going to learn the mechanism? I don't know. So also the drive to have a video and not have the budget made a lot of artists, I think, get into the Renaissance thing, like producing and being an indie artist, making all these different things from different sources, and then getting with people who are masters at it and learning from them, and So I'm an art. I won't call myself I call myself a filmmaker because it identifies you, but I'm more like video maker because I always look at films as long form, an hour or 2 hours, So I make a lot of shorts, and I have never made a movie that's an hour long yet. And I respect people to do that stuff, and I have friends involved in that. So, but it just felt like a natural extension of what I do, and trying to express my creative efforts.
No, I appreciate it wholeheartedly. The shorts are hard enough to do. I went back 16 years ago onto your YouTube, and you have Sunlight there about a little pig with music, and it's so compelling. I'm watching it. I'm watching a movie about a pig on a swing set, having some fun. And then I went, forward through, and I saw your progression is amazing. But you took the time to put this together, and I encourage people to get on your YouTube page and just get those hits up, because I have no idea how people are making money independently. There is no record deal, there is no movie deal. Independent artists are hustling, struggling, going from one job to the next, trying to figure out how to make a living in this business you call show. But you said you didn't start in Hollywood, and we talked a little bit about your mom. Where did you grow up? Where were you born?
I'm a Philadelphia native, and I moved around, of course, in the region mostly. And I did spend about 4 years in California, and but I'm back. I'm in the essentially I'm near Philadelphia now.
Okay,
New Hope, Pennsylvania, and it's just beautiful. It's really beautiful here. So
no, it's nice to be back home. I think there's a mass exodus of California, and Hollywood is not a place anymore. Hollywood is anywhere you make a movie. It's a state of mind, I think. And if you have, I use Adobe Premiere. That's my thing. I'm a PC guy, and that's what I'll use to edit this podcast, this video version. But the Final Cut, I've used that in school. Did you go to school for that, or was that something that you took some time?
School of YouTube. School of YouTube. Everything you want to find out on there, So that's kind of what I ended up doing. The best way I learn is like hands-on. I go, I want to do this. So how do I get from A to B? And I would go on there and learn it, and then experiment, and one thing and then watching people do it. As far as audio editing and stuff like that, working in the studios, I would watch the guy, and he'd teach me, or inadvertently, and I'd get the program and go home. That was around that time, 04, 05, I got a program to work with on my Mac, which enabled me to edit my audio and do some production. And it was a heavenly discovery because I could do everything right there in my home studio, which, many people were doing, and many, many more have come to do. But I wouldn't finish it there. Being able to edit and get things sounding where I want, because I could hear the way I want them, and then going to the studio and finishing it, the tools there.
Stephen, I've had that discussion before on whether people need to actually go to college or higher education with everything being online and on YouTube. And yes, I encourage the doctors and the scientists to please stay in school, save the world, do all that kind of thing. But for a musician, for someone who is going into the creative arts, the step-by-step tools are pretty much out there. I took the time when I graduated high school back in '86. I went to my local was it public radio station, and took a little class there and learned how to do radio. And then in 2003, I said, well, I need to update. And I went to Connecticut Schools of Broadcasting and learned a little bit about Final Cut and Adobe Pro Tools, and Pro Tools and Cool Edit, which became Adobe Audition, and it's good to go to school and get those tools. But, to the hands-on, I see what you're saying and I hear you. The hands-on is really what you need. Now, I do want to, Philadelphia. Yeah. That is an old city. Tell the people, if you were given a tour, what's the good stuff to do in Philadelphia? What do you like to do for kicks? And we'll get back to the music and film thing.
Yeah. Well, let's start with a place called Elfrith's Alley. I'm not sure how to spell that, but it ends up Freths. So Elfrith's Alley is one of the oldest streets in Philadelphia, which was back in 1700, I think. So it's just old. I mean, it's just cool to see. I mean, in America anyway, that's old. um, that going there, starting there, just checking out the houses, and then that whole region of Head House Square, Society Hill has awesome things to see. Then Penn's Landing is also very cool. And then in the middle of the city, you have the Liberty Bell, and you have all that kind of stuff. And then really like Roxy movie theater is like a staple. There, the Rocky Horror Picture Show is there. And there's all these just various spots that are, well worth the visit. As far as I can tell, there's still great jazz, and there's certainly great recording situations, and a lot of people have started recording, did record here some of their most excellent albums. David Bowie and Billy Joel and Springsteen, of course, is from the region. So there's there's really a lot to see. And then you just go up to New York, an hour and a half away, and sky's the limit,
That is so funny that you mentioned the Rocky Horror Picture Show. I'm going to take my family to see it this weekend. It's the first time that I've seen it out in the cinema in about 20 years since I was just after college. Well, no, I guess I've seen it after that, but it's the worst movie that I've seen over 200 times. And yes, I've seen it over 200 times, and I've been Eddie and I've been Dr. Scott. I was never bold enough to be Frank Furter. But 'tis the season to go back and check that out. But just entertainment in general, just making movies, making films. Who would have thought that when was it Sherman made that film? And just who would have thought that? How many years? 50 years later, we're still talking about that film. Wouldn't that be wonderful to make something that had that kind of staying power? Isn't that your wish, your goal, that people are talking to you for years after we're gone, making your making your mark.
I like them knowing about it now, if possible. But certainly that, for the longevity and it's real. I mean, I'm reading a book about the early composers, one of the earliest ones in there. His name was Palestrina. He lives in Palestrina, which is part in the mountains of Italy, and it's still there in the ruins. But it was like 1500s. The guy was there, and he was. Anyway, I love discovering that stuff. So I'm hoping that people in the future are discovering the good things that took place. More than the bad things.
Oh, we're still talking about the Greek tragedies, and we're still talking about Roman literature and the things that we got from them that we base our society on now, and the Etruscans, and even before that, the Assyrians, and oh my goodness, just digging into that history and finding out about the past and how they entertained themselves. It wasn't just war after war after war. There had to be some downtime. There had to be some happy time. And this is where you come in, the entertainer, the bard, if you will, and you can come up with ideas off the dome, put them on paper, and let people act them out. Now, you say you've made a movie, or you're making a movie about Tourette's. Where can people find that?
This month is the 10th anniversary of its release, and so I'm doing little celebrations around that. And the festival where I won for best documentary, it's called the Bucks Fever Film Festival, which is based in Doylestown, Pennsylvania, and the Chamber of Commerce runs it. And so my partner and producer Beth Conn Kennedy produced I met her, and she explained to me that she had worked in Hollywood and she could help me with the film. I was like, cool. So she did. She became the producer of it, and that made all the difference, I believe, because having people kind of guide you. I'm a person who has Tourette's talking about Tourette's through a film. So I needed some direction, editorial comments and guidance. And so I got in with her and with other people who put time in to help me. So it came out and I submitted it to that festival and it won. It was just crazy. It was, so that's out. It's been out. You can see it even now as we speak on my website. There's a, it lists Synaptic Adventure as far as the things I've done in speaking about it. And also it lists the film itself in there. Easy to find.
I can see that.
Along with all the other stuff I do.
Okay. It's Dijoseph's Synaptic Adventure, piano poetry. And there's a whole list there. Your website is wonderful. Whoever designed that is fantastic. StephenDijoseph.com. It's definitely going to be in the show notes down below. But you say you wrote about Tourette's. You write what you know. That's the first thing that you should be doing. When you're a writer, when you have, write what you know. And this is definitely something that you know. And you've already figured out as a director, as a creator, you surround yourself with people that are better than you in certain aspects. I've heard from different filmmakers, as long, I could be a great director as long as I have a great DP that knows about lenses and knows, what lens to use with one shot and what, lighting director and costume designers. Now, as an independent filmmaker, a lot of those jobs go to one person, where one person is wearing many hats. How many hats do you feel that you can wear in your own production?
Well, I going back to the very first one I just did it by myself. I mean, I filmed, it's very, very, very DIY and raw. It was very and then when I kind of got to a certain point in it, I played it for a few people and they said, I want to see more of this, or I want to see more of that. And then that helped me finish it because so that the guidepost seems to be get it to a certain point, share it with the people several people you trust, who have enough experience, share it with people who don't have experience too, because they're just giving you the most real response to growth. They're a person, a watcher, an audience, watching it going, that's weird, or they'll say something. They don't have to use the lingo or anything. They're just like, that was too noisy, or that was whatever, and that's useful if you're trying to quality of finishedness.
Well, those first films, was that 15, 16 years ago that you were doing that? And what kind of gear were you using?
That's when I started, and I was using. Let's see. I have one of those cameras. Hold on a second. I just want to show it to you because it's. I don't know. It's kind of entertaining to see it. I guess it was a high 8. Well, maybe I won't find it. Nope, won't find it. Okay. All I found was a bear now.
Well, I remember that the HD cameras were really starting to come into their own back then.
High 8, which what I used was high 8 film. I have some of that around here somewhere because I've had to convert it. So it was high 8 film in the digital 8 Sony Handycam, and I used that. I shot the stuff. It's a song called "Flying," and it's easily findable there on YouTube. And I just started to just experiment with things like my face in it, or placed on a tripod, doing things or capturing things that were the song was about flying. So I was using propellers and birds and things like that. And so I just kind of followed that. I traced I learned that, you have your A roll and then you can add B roll and C roll. So I kind of would, being a circuitous person, I would go and weave in and out of things, but I wanted to tell the story. So the storyline usually dictates for me what the video will be about, unless I'm just doing something stream of consciousness, experimenting with colors and visuals and just wanting, for no particular reason or aim, Well,
I've seen the no frills videos where people will get B-roll from from some other place, some stock footage, and put it over their music, and then maybe make a lyric video out of it, and that'll be the start, the way you can get something out there quickly. Until we could find somebody like you, Stephen Dijoseph, who can make a story out of it. You know, you say there was a movie about flying. So you as a creator, you're thinking about, what can I think about flying? Birds, propellers, flying fish, flying, all pterodactyls. What else can fly? Squirrels, all these things that you can jam into a production, unless they want to be a band video where they do a something on stage, and then you just go around them with your HD camera. I remember the big camera when I got out of school the second time was the Canon SL1, and then quickly the Canon SL2 came out, and it was this really lightweight camera that was doing just amazing things for the time, that was as good as any gigantic Hollywood camera. Exactly. And you were able to use it so small, so handheld. But I'm guessing that your Sony was very similar.
Yes, handheld, about that big. Not very big. No. I even sometimes I even used the mic on it to do a recording session, like I was layering stuff with the guitar and vocals. I a lot of times I would be very like, I want to get this done, so it may not have been at times the best audio, but yet I found a way to make it work. And that for me was the DIY approach. Nowadays there are the tools to make it look amazing, and it's not super difficult, as you know, with click and drag and drag and drop effects, and but it's the artistry, I think. So anybody who's wanting to make things these days, it's very accessible to anybody who has some kind of creative idea to get beats and loops and you can build something. But you always will need to have a producer's attitude. You need to tune in to how things sound, distortion, or so sometimes one thing versus the other, and sometimes it's been the art of what you're making becomes the most important thing.
Well, I mean, the thing is, do you want it fast or do you want it good? Your mechanic is going to tell you that when he's fixing your car. Do you want it fast or do you want it done right? But I know that you can do things quickly, and you don't have to have practical effects anymore. Designing costumes, it can be done. A lot of it can be done on a green screen, similar to what I'm using behind me. The reason I picked out the video background, and for those that are listening to the audio version of this, hey, check out the video version. You'll see what I'm talking about. I chose that background because I knew you were a filmmaker, and I knew you had something to do with those creative ideas. And I know you have music on your mind. Who got you into the music? You've been doing this since, you said you were born into it. Were your parents musicians at all, or anybody?
When I say that, the oddity of all that was that nobody in my immediate surroundings did anything artistic, painting or writing. Or my mom has always had desire to sing, and she wanted to be a musician and artist, and she didn't end up doing that, but she encouraged me. Like, she helped convince my dad to get me a keyboard. She did stuff like that because she wanted to see me have the opportunity. So that was really the awesome part of my mom, but nobody around. I was just completely DNA'd out the wazoo to do music. I was just like, music, art, something, that's it. Nobody asked me or told me. I told them. I said, I want to play, and they were like, what? Want to do what? What can you say about stuff like that? I think it's, somehow from some other place that we don't know, but that definitely was my case. There was no question in my mind. I never pursued any other kind of career. I did delivery jobs just to have the time to think about music or make music or find. So I found a way to make as a solo pianist. I've been working as a solo pianist for 40 years. So I've been able to figure out how to get gigs. I figured out that playing solo pays best most of the time. Unless you're in bigger arenas like weddings or things like that where there's bands and they're getting thousands of dollars. But as a soloist, I've been able to have no problems getting work.
I think I might be obsessed with gear a little bit because I'm thinking about that first keyboard that you got. Do you remember when and what that item was?
Yeah, I'm going to grab that because I got it right here.
He still has it. Oh my goodness! After all these years.
Okay. Here it is.
And he keeps it back there behind the.
Oh
my word! What is that monstrosity?
This is my first keyboard. It's called the Magnus Air Organ, and when you plug it in, it pretty much winds up. It has a blower, and it's like, and it's got the little chord buttons, and this is a B flat, it's an A, and you can make your melodies, and it's. It's amazing that it's here. I don't know how it ended up being with me, but I made a video of it. I made a video with it in it, a cover of a song by Kesha, and it ended up sounding kind of like a Cajun. So because it kind of sounds like an accordion, really, that's what it sounds. So that's my first keyboard.
That is an impressive piece of machinery. Oh my goodness. It looks like, something around the turn of the century, but at least mid-century, of the way back in the 1900s, kids, for you youngins that are out there listening. But, oh man, it's nice. It's nice to have that piece of machinery, at your disposal, because you never know what kind of sounds you're going to be making, and it's going to jive with people, and playing a Kesha song on it. Who would have thunk it? I mean, you were talking about tutorials. You have a tutorial out yourself for Roundabout, what we talked about in the beginning, right there for the solo piano. If anybody wants to learn how to play Roundabout, it's right there. So not only are you a musician, but you're also an instructor. Have you been teaching the next generation?
I have done some teaching. I found that I wasn't able to really do fundamental teaching like kids, like here's a C scale, because I just would get, I don't know, I didn't have the patience but once a person has advanced to the point where I want to get good, I want to understand. I've done some of that. Yeah, and I was pretty good at it. I mean, I haven't done a lot of it lately. It's been mostly performances and productions and booking. Those are my hats, essentially. And then content management is a big nightmare because you started off with cassettes, and then you went to CDs and computers and hard drives, and now the cloud. So I've got a bit of all of that. What do you call it? All those materials are still around. I can pull the cassette out. So organizing all that stuff is a challenge, but it's there. It's there to do.
Yeah, I can pull a cassette out. I can pull an 8-track out. I have nothing to play them on. I have a few records left, a few LPs, and I don't have any turntables left at my disposal. I've been a mobile DJ since the mid '80s. And you're talking about, working as one person. Yes, as a solo, you can make some money. If you can busk, or you can take a guitar or maybe a keyboard out to your local restaurant, you might make some bucks there. Once you start adding pieces, you got to start splitting that money. But, are you out there doing gigs? You said you've been doing it since you were 16, and that's incredible staying power.
I started. Yeah, I played in a band. My first band was I was 13 and they were all 18, and we were doing Down by the River, Neil Young, the Beatles, and all the Stones, and I was 13 and playing, So they started making fun of me being 13. I was I don't do anything about it, so I'm leaving.
Well, I mean,
so I left and I joined a wedding band.
Okay.
that I was making money every week, and I was a pretty wealthy 15-year-old. I did okay. I paid for an organ. So that was cool. And then I reached a point where I was studying the prog stuff, and I was like, I don't want to play this wedding stuff anymore. And I want to be an artist. I want to get into the writing. So I left that band, and I just started delivering whatever, pizzas and flowers, and I had a lot of stories there. But I just got into being an artist, and then reality sets in, and you're like, oh, how do I go to make money? And my parents, how are you going to make money? So I figured, playing solo became the answer for me.
Well, you're giving people gems. You could either be a starving artist playing your original music for a while until that catches on, or you could be in a party band and you could play other people's music, for weddings and bar mitzvahs and corporate events and such. You can make a little bit of money doing that, but there, with great reward comes great risk. So you bet on yourself. You quit those bands. In what capacity were you when you were 13? What were you doing? Were you playing? What instrument were you playing, or were you doing the vocals?
It was an organ called the Jaguar organ. It had S-shaped support bar, and it was red. You can see those organs in like the early bands, like the Dave Clark Five and the Zombies, and they all that sound. There's a distinct sound about them, but they were great for that music, and they just were. So I had one of those, and that was a lot of fun to have that and play rock on it. I was into rock band, so that was where it all kind of, and then it developed into I wanted a Hammond B3. I got a Hammond, and it was with the big Leslie. Leslie speaker is a big speaker that has a rotating cone in it, and it gives you all those sounds, those familiar sounds from early rock bands and jazz bands. The sound is very distinct, and it made it's a staple of sound that developed into a lot of musical styles.
Well, shoot, this is like the early 70s, mid 70s that you're playing this kind of music, and you are really you got ahead of the game. For a 13-year-old to be in a band with a bunch of 18-year-olds, you had an experience that not a lot of 13-year-olds have. You were like 5 years ahead of the game. You really were.
I was. I don't know what it was exactly, but my passion to do it. Passion goes a long way, and then applied understanding. Sometimes there's all kinds of there's let's start with the savant. Where they're totally autistic, and they sit down and they sound like Leon Russell. They sound like these great artists. How it works, it's a godsend. So that's I don't consider that as practice. That's a gift, like a direct pipeline. So then there's those of us who have to practice, where so I was just on fire. And I think when you're on fire for something, you really can get very far with it. I always encourage when I'm speaking, I'm saying to the kids or the people I'm speaking to, I say, make sure what you're going to spend most of your day doing is something you want to do, and if it's not, then make sure it's going to pay for something that you want to do, but don't just do it for the money, don't just for the rent, because you'll end up pretty miserable, So that's one of the things.
Stephen Dijoseph, I don't want you to discount your passion, because I think that falls into the category of 99% perspiration, 1% inspiration, that kind of thing. So I think your passion really took you a long way. You knew from a young age what you wanted to do, and you had no other clue of anything else you could do. Yes, those Joe jobs, those day jobs, that's what helps you keep food on the plate, while you're thinking about other things. A delivery job is a great job because you have a lot of time on your hands to think. And maybe that's bad for somebody who's got way too much thoughts going through their heads. Maybe you need to have an accountant job and start thinking about numbers. But whatever you have to do in your day job to make your night job, your passion, come alive, you do it. Man, you're giving people gems. Now,
I hope so. Part of it also, I have to say, is that having something that's visible like Tourette's, you inevitably become a question mark in people's minds. Or the bullying thing hasn't been a real problem because I got tough and I wouldn't take any shit. So I would stand up so nobody would, I'm Italian. I come from so I didn't have a bullying a challenge per se, but what I did have was attention deficit and being triggered by sounds or people or so I found myself looking for things to do for work that would keep me either by myself or where I wouldn't have to be the center of attention until I got on stage. So that part is an ironic thing, somebody with Tourette's or somebody with a condition that's visible wants to get on stage and be in front of people. Go figure, right? Yeah. So, but I think part of that really in my own calling is to inspire people. And that is, what has it ended up being for sure.
Well, Stephen Dijoseph, you're not only the keyboardist, you're now a front man. You sing. Do you find that does the Tourette's really present itself, or does it subside when you're focusing on singing and performing, or is it just part of your show?
It's kind of like I describe it like this. I describe it like the movements and the ticking and the whole Tourette thing is like a river that's kind of never stops, that gets channeled into things that I'm doing, But there's a challenge with tics when I'm playing too, so ends up being infused into the playing. So now at a wedding, that's not the most popular thing. You're in the background. You can't. It's hard to, but I can be innocuous enough to not be noticed or work it. I figured ways to cover it up or mask it to not be disruptive, if you will. Like I don't shout things, but I do make noises at times. So, but they figure it's a crazy musician. That's awesome. It becomes a sort of stereotyping a little bit, which kind of works to my favor because he's a musician, he's a jazz musician. He's this kind of musician. He does weird stuff, That in a way has been helpful to me, those stereotypes, in that I'm in a field where people are out of what has been considered the norm, now that's changing, but still, I would say that helped me more than hurt.
Oh, I'm thinking about the faces of Mick Fleetwood and Joe Cocker and almost every bassist in every band, including doing that bass face. So, tics and sticking your tongue out and doing, making random noises, that adds to a show. So I think that's part of the whole Stephen Dijoseph experience, that people can, when they're coming to your show, they know they're going to see something a little bit different. Maybe you'll hit a note that was supposed to be a high C. Bam, you hit a B flat. Oh, well,
I heard this story once, and it was like, if you hit a note you don't intend, it'll sound intentional.
That's right.
So it's humorous, but I mean, it sort of works in jazz. I don't know what would work if you're doing a perfect cover or a tribute band, but in my case, I became a sort of spontaneous arranger, if you will. There's a a spontaneous arranger of it's the when I play, like I play a lot of retirement villages. I found that was a great outlet and a great way to make some money and inspire people and feel good about things,
Yeah.
So I learned that repertoire, the jazz and the old time jazz and the classical, and I find myself not like reading the arrangements, which are great. I really respect them, but I found incorporating all these different styles into my own approach, and it seems to be popular. So,
I dig an assisted living facility. I did some karaoke shows out there to some of the assisted living. You cannot, for this country in particular, forgets their old people. There's so much that we could learn from seniors, from people that have lived, have had an experience. I mean, half the people that were at this karaoke show that I was doing at this assisted living facility at 2:00 in the afternoon, some of them were professional musicians. Some of them were singers, back in the 50s, back in the 60s. And they were those people that were inspiring us, the next generation. So I appreciate that you did that. It's a great gig. There's not a lot of money in it. You're not going to get rich playing at an old folks home. And I know they're called ALFs now and retirement villages. Not supposed to call them old folks homes anymore, but that's colloquial. But I like that. I like that you played there. And no gig is too small, and no gig is too big. And you're probably going to give the same show either way, right?
Yes. I consider. I learned early on doing that. People were like, "Well, they're not really paying attention." They're paying attention, and I've definitely met people who worked in the various orchestras who were 5-star chefs for orchestras, who were first chair violinists. I even met the daughter of Rudolf Serkin. If you remember, Rudolf Serkin was a Beethoven expert and a famous pianist. And there was his daughter at this facility. I'm going like, oh my God. So I played, I didn't know she was there. I was playing mostly jazz and, some classical. My versions of classical are usually interpretive approaches, like the yes. But I was like, I had only respect for who your father was and your brother. And she's like, well, I really super enjoyed what you did. It's different. And it's like, so she wasn't like, or anything like that. She was just very, very cool. So yeah, those people are who we are from past. That's it. It's as simple as that. They had lives. They were beautiful. They did all kinds of crazy stuff and good stuff. And so we got to realize that, that's what I realized.
Oh, good music is just good music. I mean, there's chord progression as long as the notes are in the right place, for that right mood. And you got to read the crowd. You don't play stuff that's too melancholy if they're really depressed, or don't play the stuff that's too peppy if they're, they want to be depressed. Some people just want to be mellow, so you gotta read that crowd sometimes. I mean, it's gotta be tough for a music. I mean, for a DJ, I think it's a little bit easier because they're going to come up and tell me what they want to hear. But for a musician, who gets hired for a certain gig, and you have your own repertoire, you have your set list. Do you set that set list and ahead of time, and then you're pretty rigid, or can you bend?
Way back when I first was doing it, I had a set list, but that's out the door now. I mean, I know songs that I don't even know I know that people ask for, and I start playing them. I'm like, holy shit, So I got a huge repertoire, and it's in every jazz, country, rock, jazz, Broadway, sing-alongs. It really, and most people now reaching this age, they want to hear like the Beatles and Billy Joel. So the days of Babyface are sort of, they're there, but it's like they want to hear what I grew up with. They were all listening to that. If they're 80 or something like that, they'll know the Beatles, they'll know all this stuff, and it's like they want to hear it. So it's changed.
Well, I mean, once we get to a certain age, I find sometimes I think, am I too old for this gig or that gig? I'm playing for a middle school on Friday, and I'm 54 years old, and I'm thinking, am I too old for that? But I played them last year, and they had a great time. And I played a Sweet 16, and they had a great time. The music is music, and you got to feel that vibe. And I like the new stuff, some of the new stuff, and I like some of the old stuff. So you mix all that together, and it's gonna come into a great time. Now, when you're playing at a club, are you doing a lot of gigs that are all original, or is it 50-50, 80-20? What are we doing when we go to a Stephen Dijoseph show?
So if it's a concert, then I'm doing my own music, and I also have the covers that I do. I call derangements because my name's Dijoseph. So there's a built-in beautiful story there. You know, I'm like, these are derangements, you know. So I've got a whole album's worth of that, from the Beatles to Yes to every kind of, I don't know, so a lot of stuff. I did a number of Beatles pieces, but then the Yes piece, and then I have classical pieces that I deranged, you know, Chopin, and I have an arrangement of the Bumblebee, Flight of the Bumblebee, which became Bumblebee Boogie, and you know, so, and because I have the whole the quirky thing, Tourette thing, and at the piano, I got into breaking things up with like a funny gesture, almost like Victor. Well, this guy goes back. Victor Borge was an amazing musician and a very funny person, very funny, and he would just do. So he's like a mentor in some ways to me, in the way he would do. He would, and people, if you're young listening, you should go watch this guy, because everybody that we see now and are loving, you know, they learn from these people, and you got to realize that in any kind of pop cultural arena, you know, Jim Carrey and Robin Williams, they learned from Red Skelton and Sid Caesar, and so there's nothing new under the sun. It's just developed, you know. It's like, but you got to know that there are roots to everything that we do, you know. So bringing those things into my own approach is both challenging and rewarding, you know. So anyway, so that's what happens in my concerts. There's lots of stories, and I convey the influence of Tourette's. I demonstrate it with a piece of music. Even so yeah, concerts. I love concerts. They're my favorite thing to do.
Yeah, I remember the name Victor Borge, and I don't remember what instrument he played, if he played an instrument, but you made me think about Henny Youngman, where he would bring his violin up and he would just tell jokes and play a little violin, and he was an amazing violin player with some jokes and told stories.
Yes.
And the crowd was just wowed, entertained. So good. You're going to have stories. You're going to have music. You're going to have a show, a night of entertainment when you go see Stephen Dijoseph. That's fantastic. Now, do you find yourself playing primarily the solo gigs, or do you have a band that plays along with you?
I would say primarily solo most of the time. Sometimes there's a percussionist. This summer I played in my area. There's a Bethlehem Music Festival, and I did play one of the shows with a drummer doing like free jazz, like just improvised music that sort of sounds like Herbie Hancock, Chick Corea, McCoy Tyner, like very jazz, and Grateful Dead, some Grateful Dead-ish kind of things. But so sometime I'm having more bands. In fact, I'm working on a project of progressive rock right now, which was recorded in the 80s, that I'm kind of trying to reconstitute and bring in musicians so we can do it live.
See, I like that you have no limits. My favorite band of all time is Queen, you know, and I had 13 of their albums, and every one of those albums was so different. You had a rock and a pop and a disco and a jazz, and I go off to work on Monday morning. He was singing stuff from turn of the century, lazing on a Sunday afternoon, probably my favorite thing. So good music is good music, and you're making it, you're doing it. After all these years, you're still doing it. And I mean, do you have shows that are coming up that people need to know about?
Let me just pull that out of my October 20. There's a couple of things that I'm working on right now. The best way to find what solidifies would be to go to my Facebook page, Dijoseph Music and Film. I always post what's coming up there. And even on my personal page, Stephen Dijoseph, that's where you can get to know me more, because I keep my personal stuff there, and then I share musical things more on the Dijoseph Music and Film, you know, as well as upcoming concerts and stuff like that. So the most upcoming thing is going to be a discussion on October 18th at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard about. I'm going to be talking about neurology at large, you know, neurology and neurodiversity at large is what it's really called, because the the essence of it is that not only in music, but in every facet of life, this is affecting our life. And there's lots of people in power that have like ADD and all these things that we need to understand where these brains function from and how they look at life and how that's playing a role in all of our lives. So it starts with my film, of course, because that's where the baseline is for me. But then in the discussion, I'll get into like, how about Bill Gates? He's out Asperger. He's like, that's his platform, but look at the genius stuff he's done. And in the philanthropic, some of the aspects of these things have come into play too. So anyway, that's October 18th at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time.
Now, is this
on Facebook?
Is that going to be a panel of people, or is that going to be you alone doing a Q&A?
Well, it's not with me alone, but I'm going to invite some people to join, and it'll be like kind of a discussion room, I guess, right on my my Dijoseph singular, Dijoseph Music and Film on Facebook. I'm just going to, instead of trying to make an event out of it, I'm just going to say, just come to my page and I'll be there and we'll all start talking.
I like that. Yeah. I like that. It'd be good to create an event and let people know, like you just let us know that that you're going to be there on the 18th. But Stephen Dijoseph, Music and Film, I'll have that link in the show notes as well. Facebook.com, Dijoseph, Music and Film. And that's when you said you had deconstructed music, it reminded me of D in Action Jackson, where she was delightful and delivered, delectable, delicious.
That's funny,
yeah, that was a great character. But yes, it's a play on your name. It makes you, it's your brand, Stephen Dijoseph. If you look up that name, you're going to find everything that is you. And the films, are you doing any more films right now, or is it primarily music on this in this juncture of your life?
I'm working in a new sort of a new direction. I've been some of the people I'm studying with are suggesting to concentrate on, instead of the quick productions for social media, concentrating on longer forms like full songs or short films, and maybe not as many of those coming out, but really good ones coming out on YouTube. So I'm working in that direction even as we speak, because I'm learning a lot. And then in addition to that, I have a keynote concert program, which, if you want to make a living, do keynote concerts and keynote speaking, because those places have budgets. And if you have a topic that is helpful to people and you can put it into a form that's very presentable and inspiring and not boring, then you can make a really good living. So I have this story that it's been busting out for a long time, and now I'm kind of finding where to fit it in. So the two things I think are the long form videos I'm working on and the speaking opportunities that are out there.
Well, those are two avenues, hopefully, that you can find monetary value and make some kind of a living. Keep yourself sustained. Yeah, I know a lot of you were talking about ADD and short attention spans. A lot of the kids got that. That's why TikTok is so big, and these little Instagram videos where you just dance around, give them a 30-second snippet of something, and hey, I get a like, and hopefully one of these social medias will pay you a little bit. I'm hoping that you get the hits that you deserve. You get the hits that you need to help you to sustain yourself. Stephen Dijoseph, you're amazing, man. And I know we've only scratched the surface of who you are, man. And I know that who designed your website? Is that you as well?
San Francisco. She said, I think we should upgrade your website. And I've had some pretty cool websites. I can't say that they've been, there was a fella that designed an album of mine called Piano Poetry. I'm always looking for this stuff to hold up, and it's not in reach. I'm sorry, but I want to hold this one up real quick. So This is a rather dramatic looking cover. So let me just see if you can see that. I don't know if that's a little reflecty or there it is. Okay.
He's in there. I get the gist of it. Piano poetry.
Yeah. So that was designed by a fellow named Serge Nikolic, and he really helped me to translate my Tourette's into what I was doing, see that this is what was going on, and he pointed it out, and he helped me in developing an understanding of Photoshop and also of some design. So what was my goal here? What was your question? That I was telling you about this.
No, the web design and who designed your things for you?
So he designed a website that was just amazing, based on this album cover. And but it became complicated to work it. And so gradually over time, I tried a few different things. And then maybe about 6 years ago, met with my aunt in San Francisco. And she was like, let's get you a really good site on Squarespace. And so she had the ideas and just send me pictures and let's do this. And she built that. And then I started modifying things and adding things. And so, I wanted it to convey everything that I'm doing so that people can go there and get the full enchilada, if you will, and see, what's going on, what I've done. The Synaptic Adventure Piano Poetry Program is a program that I bring. It's it's a keynote concert is more focused on speaking with music added, but the piano poetry program is like the music with stories. So that seems to be popular in like schools and libraries and stuff like that, So so I wanted to have that program there, and then the film, and then the music. So
well, it's a very good website. I want you to see if you can make a link. I see you have a music link, but I want you to make it to where people can buy your music off of you directly, because I know that some of these, as much as I love my AI overlords that are helping me to distribute this podcast all over. The way to make money is just not out there. You cannot do it with the streaming. People need to buy your merch and buy it directly from you.
Yeah, it's merch. So that for those who are budding musicians or budding artists it's merch, it's performances, it's products like T-shirts or whatever it is you have to offer. It's in books. You can be writing stories about what you do, and speaking. So I have a book that I've developed that I haven't released yet that teaches musicians how to get gigs in retirement villages, and I've done it for 40 years, and I understand the whole process and what not to do and how to put your repertoire together. And, so all these varieties of in the idea of being an artist and working and making a living,
Yeah, you definitely have to know the older stuff. I know I used to finish off with Good Night, Irene. That was the way to end the show. And the whole place would sing along with me. I'd have the words up on the screen and we'd all sing Good Night, Irene. And they loved it. They loved it. So appreciative. Oh,
you're an artist, but you're providing a service to people because you're taking your inspiration and you're taking something that takes a lot of work and you're giving it to people. And if you've done it well, it's going to inspire them, or if you've done it against odds, or, people need this. The world needs this, and people doing it need it because it's putting good vibes into the universe.
Well, you got to appreciate as an artist that they got out of their beds, they got out of their couches, they got away from their television sets, and they came to see you. Yeah. So you're going to give them a show. Stephen Dijoseph, I commend you. I appreciate you. And I appreciate the time that you've given me. I know we have to wind this thing down. I like to be respectful of people's times, but I want you've already given a few shout outs to people that have helped you along the way. But people, I mean, we can't do this all on our own. You're doing your own social media. You said that you had an aunt that helped you out with your website. Give some shout outs to people that have helped you along the way on this journey.
Well, Beth Con Kennedy has been a major, she's helped me in so many ways with coming to shows and working on the film. Serge Nikolic is an amazing graphics guy and photographer, and he's just a real genius guy from Serbia. Mary Kay Mann was someone I had a band with many years ago called Urban Celtic. She helped me get the idea of my piano poetry together, and Serge was her brother-in-law. So she's an Irish musician and very talented artist and teacher. God, it really goes on. Henry Nevison Films. So Henry Nevison Productions is someone to check out. He's a documentary producer, filmmaker, and a super good friend. And there are many more. And if you come to my site, I do name these people.
And what's the name of your film once again?
A Synaptic Adventure, Tourette's and Beyond.
Okay, because it says Dijoseph's Synaptic Adventure, Piano Poetry. What is piano poetry?
So piano poetry is the style that my piano writing style playing was dubbed again through Serge Nikolic, because he says like it's sort of a poetry, he would say. It's like a piano poetry, and I was like, yeah, that's what it is, because it's like conversational, and it's classical jazz, hybridish kinds of Tourettic.
Man, I dig that so much, man. You've come up with your own genre. Piano poetry.
It's definitely a thing. I mean, I think it borrows obviously from many influences, but I think it seems to have a unique thing about it, and that's why it needed a unique name, piano poetry.
Well, I started off trying to figure out what box I can put you in. Maybe that's the box. At least the box that you're kind of swimming in right now until you get back on your filmmaking, because I do want to see, what else comes out of that mind of yours and gets put on film. And one thing that a musician needs is a good photographer, a good videographer that follows them around from gig to gig. That's so important, because you got that gig, the pictures and the video are going to help you get the next gig. And that's what it's about. Not only playing that one, giving your all, but also looking forward to that next show. Right?
Yes, Dan, I totally agree. Yeah. I mean, understanding that, we're not an island, we may be solo. If we're solo artists, it's still, we may be wearing a lot of hats, but there's a hat that we can't fill, and we need that person, we need those people and I think the same goes with fans. Fans are an integral part of this expression, and playing live. There's nothing like playing in front of people. I love Facebook Live, and that's all. Being able to do things at all times is great, but being in front of people is the best. It's just like because it's their energy and love, back and forth,
energy,
and our conversation,
energy, As much as people think, hey, what do you call it? Do you call it a spirit? Do you call it, whatever, Mother Nature, whatever you call that thing, there is an energy that comes, between people, love and understanding. And, it's beautiful. It's beautiful. And you put all that into music and film. That's your double threat. Oh, sorry.
You put that all into interviewing too. You're a great interviewer. Yeah, I really appreciate your energy is great.
All right, my man. I don't want this to be the last time that we talk. As time progresses, if you have other things to promote, you come on back here. But I like to finish these things off with last words for the people. This could be words to live by. This could be something you heard a long time ago, maybe a mantra that you wake up with every morning, or whatever pops into your head at this moment in time. Stephen Dijoseph, give the last words for the people.
Okay. I would say that you should really, when I say do what you love, I mean that in the deepest sense of the word, because sometimes people think, oh, he just wants to play video games, but then the kid turns out to be a total genius because of his skill. So really, I think parents have a hard time, because if kids are just doing what they love to do, it's like maybe not what they think they should love to do, but every being has an innate guidance in them, and that's important to remember. No matter who you're dealing with, partners or children or teachers or people you're struggling with. So you respect that innate knowledge in each individual.
Well, there you have it, party people. Such a cool guy, Stephen Dijoseph. Look him up. Ask for him by name. Check out all the links that I have in the show notes, especially StephenDijoseph.com. That's DIJoseph.com. Stephen with a PH. Stephen with a PH. DIJoseph.com. Oh, man. And it's a really well-made website. And I know there was a little commercial there for Squarespace. I have no code for Squarespace. They're not a sponsor, but it's a good website. I appreciate the work that was put into it. It's got, the songs, the music, there's videos, and there's a link to the movie and piano poetry. Oh my goodness. What a great way to describe what he does. Piano poetry. Branding. Pow. Done. Stephen Dijoseph, that's a unique name. Add piano poetry to the end of that. Even more uniquer. Uniqueness. All right, I'm starting to slur my words. Let's finish up this edition of What Makes You Famous. Thank you so much, Stephen Dijoseph, for being on the program. I appreciate it so much. That closes this one up. Now, if you, yes, you, my loyal listener, if you'd like to tell your story, I encourage you to give me a call, 501-470-6386, or email KeysDAN@AOL.com. That's it for me. It's KeysDAN, RadioWhat.com, DJLittleRock.com. Peace. I'm out of here.